Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. And today in this video, I'm finally getting around to something that I've teased and mentioned several months ago, and that is building a Windows 7 gaming computer. Yeah, I've basically been procrastinating this for quite a while now of getting this done, just because I was doing a lot of digging around on the internet trying to find a good way to get this to work, just because Windows Vista and 7 era games has a lot of weird little quirks in modern days. So hopefully in this video we can overcome some of them, and also hopefully gaming. So let's just get started and see what we're going to be doing about this, because I have no idea how this is going to go. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this is because, well, I have a lot of fond memories of Windows 7. One of my first computers that was actually mine was Windows 7, and I used it for college. And this was also around the time when I was getting more into gaming in general. I always wanted to build a Windows 7 PC. Just like I always wanted to build a Windows XP computer, but there was no way I could afford it. By this point, I did actually have some money going from a job I had, and I actually did have some more realistic parts planned for this build, but I just never got around to doing it. And unfortunately, the laptop I used back then just was not good for gaming. It was an Intel Atom-based machine with maybe 1 GB of RAM and no CD drive. So that's kind of the era I'm wanting to stick with in terms of this build, as the primary era of Windows 7. Late 2009 to about late 2012, early 2013, with the release of Windows 8, which we all kind of know how that operating system went. So that's kind of what I wanted to stick with in terms of parts, hardware, and games. Even though I am going to delve a little bit past that, hopefully, and see what this thing can do, it'll still be fun to see exactly what this type of hardware can do. And also, it's really weird to think about that in 2026, Windows 7 is considered retro. Yes, retro. The operating system came out 17 years ago, which it just hurts to think about. But yeah, it's now a retro operating system, and thus building a Windows 7 retro gaming computer is not out of the realm of possibility, especially since most hardware 2010 to about even a couple of years ago supported Windows 7. So there's a huge decades worth of parts that can be used for this, that in terms of CPUs, GPUs, bottlenecks, RAM, hard drives, that can go into this. But like I said, I want to stick to about that 3 or 4 year range of the primary use case era of Windows 7. And unlike my Windows XP build, in which I had a vague sense of parts I wanted to use and I really couldn't read my handwriting, during this time I actually did do a lot of research into the parts I wanted to put into a Windows 7 gaming computer, even though we're not using those parts at all today. Be able to compare to the build we're going to be doing today, because today this build is going to be vastly almost overkill for what I wanted to get done, but it'll still be really cool. Now, several months ago, I put a poll out, and I can't believe it's been about 5 or 6 months already. I put up a poll on my YouTube page that basically said, hey, I want to build a Windows Vista /7, mostly Windows 7. Which way should I go? AM3, the Core i5-750, or the i7-930? I was really leaning towards the AM3 build because, well, besides my socket 7 back here, when we're running Windows 95, I really haven't messed with too much AMD stuff. So I was really leaning towards that and getting stuff set up, ready to go for that. And I was completely shocked that majority of people wanted to see an i7-930, which kind of means I had to change gears on this entire project. Let's take a look at the parts, and then we'll hopefully see the software cooperates. So the first part we're going to be using in terms of vastly overkill is this, the Asus ROG Rampage 3 Gene. An MATX board from roughly late 2009, early 2010. This board was not something the average gamer was going to be picking up for their rig. Rocking 8 SATA ports, 2 of which are actually attached to a Marvell RAID controller, 6 RAM slots in triple channel configuration. Yes, triple channel. Dual full-speed PCI 16X slots, a PCI X4 slot, and a standard PCI slot. The massive LGA 1366 CPU socket, beefy VRM cooling, and a built-in Sound Blaster XFI2 Supreme FX sound chip, having 7.1 channel surround. Speaking of I/O, in terms of that, we have a legacy PS2 keyboard port, 6 USB 2.0 ports, Class A FireWire, an Ethernet port, 2 USB 3.0 ports, the 6-port 7.1 channel surround, and this unique USB port here with the ROG Connect button. This is kind of very interesting because this allows you to connect a laptop with a special cable to monitor your system while it's running. Yeah, imagine that for a second. You can have a laptop plugged in next to your desktop and monitor your CPU temps, your voltages, your GPU information, your entire motherboard diagnostics and statistics on a separate laptop. And yes, nowadays that doesn't sound super impressive because you could do that with a third or fourth monitor, whatever you psychopaths are running in terms of multi-monitor support. Think about that. That was 2009. The idea that you could basically monitor it remotely from a secondary laptop and even control settings that way was actually really cool. On the subject of CPUs, we're going to be using this beefy monstrosity. This is the Core i7-930, a 4-core, 8-thread, 2.8 gigahertz CPU with a boost clock of 3.066. This thing was a monster back in 2009 and vastly overkill for basically 90% of users. To know what I'm talking about in terms of overkill for this little chip here, we need to go back in time to 2009, when the single-core Pentium 4s were budget CPUs, when the Core 2 Duos, which were dual-core, dual-thread processors, were basically the de facto standard for most gaming PCs, and the Core 2 Quads were considered basically overkill for a lot of games, since most games didn't even require quad-core. It was more of a luxury to have those extra 2 cores. The fact that this was a hyper-threaded quad-core, think about that, that's a 4-core, 8-thread processor in 2009. This was not marketed to gamers. In fact, this whole platform, the LGA 1366, well, the i7 here, not the Xeons, and its accompanying board, the Rampage 3 Gene, were mostly marketed to the extreme enthusiasts, the ones who are doing video editing, rendering, media creation. This was a professional level CPU. This was not something the average gamer was just going to drop the money for, because these things were not cheap. Even its little brother, the Core i5-750 that I showed in a previous video, that was still technically considered almost high-end for a gaming PC. So this thing here is almost a definition of overkill in 2009. Speaking of overkill and things that the average consumer would probably never utilize, this thing can utilize not just one channel of RAM, not just dual channel, but triple channel RAM. Yes, 6 whole RAM sticks all working together to give this thing a max RAM of 24 whole gigabytes. I know what you're thinking. 24 gigabyte, that's nothing. My computer has 64 gig. My computer has 128. Well, again, we need to go back in time to 2009, when the average XP computer for 32-bit was a max of only 4 gigabyte RAM, which means that this stick here would be the max a 32-bit operating system could handle. And most XP machines that were running 64-bit, most of them were only 8 gigabyte, maybe, and that was almost overkill for Windows XP. Windows Vista and 7 was averaging somewhere between 8 gigabyte of RAM, with 16 being borderline too much, an overkill for most PC builders. So 24 whole gigabyte, especially working together in triple channel, this is unheard of during that time. And realistically, only boards of this caliber was really able to handle that much RAM, unless you were going into the very high-end server boards. And well, that's basically what this system is the consumer version of a server board. So something that's technically not overkill is this. For graphics, we're going to be using the GTX 550 Ti, a 1 gigabyte card from roughly 2010-2011. Right in that sweet spot of where I want to be in terms of parts. But we're not just using one. No. We're going to be using 2 in SLI, which, yeah, this is not the most ideal thing for this build. In fact, if anything, I think this thing might have a CPU bottleneck with this. And the reason why I want to use 2 in SLI is mainly because, well, I want to. I have 2 of them. They're matching identical. Might as well use them for this build. But also, this was almost a last hurrah for SLI. After this point in time, SLI, the returns to, hardware just wasn't there anymore, and not many people were using SLI past this point. They were just using single cards that were just more powerful if they wanted more power, especially since most games were starting to target the mid-range anyway. Now I will say that should one of these cards not work, or the SLI bridge is faulty, or for whatever reason I start having a lot of issues getting games to run and work, even if adjusting settings, I do have a plan B. Now, these 2 cards are much later, but they are still Windows 7 era appropriate. I have a GTX 950 for the Win Edition, and I also have a GTX 960 SSC that I can use as a single card solution that would be ideally a lot more powerful, realistically, but also a good plan B should these 550s not work. In terms of storage, we're going to be going with something that would have been seen back during this time, especially for Windows 7. First is we're going to go with a 120 gigabyte SSD for the operating system, and a more traditional, if not a little small, 500 gigabyte hard drive for all the games and applications. Now, the reason for this is during this time, SSDs were very expensive, and capacity-wise, they weren't much higher than this. I do remember during this time, SSDs were the new hotness, they were the high-end stuff. Realistically, 1 terabyte drives would be the more realistic approach for a build like this, but I don't know how many games I'm going to be able to put on here and actually have work, and that's because of a weird quirk with Windows 7. And yes, this is a little bit later than 2009, but trying to find vintage SSDs is kind of a pain, and I really don't trust it. And these 120 gigabyte ones are actually fairly cheap, so we'll just go with that. Also, realistically, I'm using a smaller capacity 120 gigabyte SSD because of the fact that SSD prices have gone up quite a bit, even on some of the very cheap ones on Amazon. And this was something I bought quite a while ago for a project. I just hadn't used it, so I was trying to find a use for it. It's almost too small for anything I could do with my video creation, so this seems like a great thing for it. And also, realistically, the other reason why I'm using a 500 gigabyte hard drive instead of a 1 terabyte ones is I have all my 1 terabyte ones set aside for backing up my YouTube stuff for cold storage that's not on my main server. So that's the other reason why I'm using 500 gigabyte ones. These are a little bit cheaper and easier to find than a lot of them, since hard drive prices might start going up at some point in the future too. I would really love for this AI bubble to just pop and all these companies get burned. To house all of this, I'm going to be using this, hopefully. This is an Antec design. I have no idea the actual name. I've tried Googling and searching this thing up, and I can't find the exact model, but it is a Windows 7 era case with USB 3.0. There was a Windows 7 sticker on the top panel here, which is not here. I don't know where it went. I took it to work to get the Windows 7 sticker off because it was all torn up and messed up. And it does say it has a Core i5, even though this will have a Core i7 when I get done. So yeah, this is the case I'm going to use, even though I don't have the top panel for it yet. But it's a very nice Windows 7 era case. Yay, my light started working again. Well, I mean, it works. I've mentioned before in previous videos, something's wrong with the LED bulbs I put in there. A little bit of thermal paste. No matter what the amount is I put on there, it's wrong. Okay, now I didn't mention this before, but I want to talk about the cooling situation. So this is the Intel stock cooler for the 1366 consumer platform here. Mainly because most coolers for these were for servers and just really noisy. So this was kind of Intel's solution. Giant copper slug surrounded by a massive stack of aluminum pins. I'm assuming this will keep it cool. I mean, this is the cooler that was on the board when I got it. I mean, honestly, I've been looking at some different LGA 1366 coolers, and a lot of them are just really gimmicky looking, and I want something I know is going to work. If this causes a problem, I might do something different in the future, but right now, I know it'll work. All right, time for the RAMs. And yeah, I know that these aren't gaming RAM because they don't have heat sinks on them. I'm trying to find 6 identical matching DDR3 RAM sticks that all have the same heat sink, same brand, same everything. I have some of them in my cart on eBay from like 4 different sellers. All right, let's get it from the case. I just realized It's a waste for me to use this case. This board doesn't have USB 3 headers, so I'm gonna go with plan B on terms of casing, because there's no USB 3 header. I might as well not even use a case with USB 3 out. So instead, plan B is this case. It's another Windows 7 Air case. Again, I don't know who makes all these cases. Trying to find the names of these cases is kind of a pain. And unfortunately, I am missing the 3.5-inch bay cover here, so this one's going to be left open for right now. But yeah, it's got USB 2.0 up front, which is much more ideal for, well, I guess wasteful ports, I guess. Front panel stuff. Okay, so we have audio. We have, that's Firewire. Front USB. Yeah. And yeah, look at that. That downspout's right on top of that cooler. That's gonna draw in so much fresh air. We even have a toolless chassis, which is awesome. One GPU, dual GPUs. All right, so we're hooking up some power. Video card. Yeah, there's really not a good way to cable manage this stuff. If I had a little bit newer case, I probably could have managed it better, but yeah, it ain't gonna go well for this. We don't have any IDE stuff, so we're going to just shove it away. Get some SATA cables. I'm not gonna be too concerned about hooking up the optical drive right now, because most of everything I should be able to do off of USB. Maybe. I'm pretty sure everyone who's ever built a Windows 7 computer is probably yelling into the void about how bad this is gonna look. Okay. Tidy all that up a little bit. Okay. Let's get this thing hooked up to the desk over there in place of the XP tower and get some Windows 7 installed. Ooh, there we go. All right, it's working. Well, it's posted anyway. Intel Core i7 CPU 930 at 220 gigahertz, speed 2.8, DDR3 1066. Okay, so one of the sticks must have grabbed the wrong stick and it's down clocking thing, but that's fine because I do have the full 24 gigabyte. 1 keyboard, 1 mouse. We have SATA 3 ID hard disk. It's not detecting my second drive. We have Extreme OC or Gaming, CPU level up. So I can actually forcibly overclock this to be the same spec as the i7 965, which is 3.2 gigahertz. Whoa, we're not doing that. Sync mode enabled. No, it's not detecting. I might have to do some checking real quick, but LED control. All right, so I'm gonna power this down. I'm gonna see what's going on with that second drive, but hey, it boots and works and stuff. So next time you see this thing, it'll be booting into Windows 7. Hopefully. Okay, there it is, SATA 5. And there we go, a basic installation of Windows 7 Professional. Looks a little sparse on that desktop though, so I'm gonna get some benchmarks and games installed and I'll be right back. Okay, and I'm back with the Windows 7 gaming PC. And as you can see, I've got some stuff and goodies installed. Well, kinda. Actually, I had a few issues getting stuff installed. I'm not sure if everything's working correctly because the icons for all the games that I have here are not showing up. But we'll just see what works and what doesn't work. Like I alluded to earlier, there might be some issues getting some games to run. This is the ROG branded one, and it's actually the one that came with the driver install disk for this setup. So we have a Core i7-930 with a max CDP of 130 watt with the Bloomfield core, LGA 1366 with 45 nanometer process, and core voltage is currently at 0.944 volt. We're sitting at 2.8 gigahertz. Yeah, clock speed 1600 megahertz times 12 with a 133 bus speed. 8 megabyte of level 3 cache, 4 core, 8 thread. This thing is a monster. Mainboard ASUS Rampage 3 Gene with the X58 chip. Memory, we have 24 gigabyte of RAM in triple channel, so we are in full triple channel mode. Awesome. We're gonna run some benchmarks. I got 3D Mark 06, 3D Mark 03, and I got 3D Mark 11 downloading upstairs, so I can put that on here in a second. I forgot to download the original batch stuff, so let's run some benchmarks and see how it checks out. Okay, so the benchmarks are all done, and I was actually, well, not fully surprised. I knew this one was going to be a lot more powerful than what I was going to be comparing it to, but I was kind of surprised and blown away by the order of magnitude that this thing just blew the other ones out of the water. And I do want to clarify really quick before I go through the result numbers here. I could not get 3D Mark 11 to install on this machine. It gave me a weird error, and I'll put the error up here on screen. And I'm not quite sure what this means. When I looked this up, it says something about the files that come with it are not correct matching to the version of 3D Mark 11, which makes no sense because they should be coming with 3D Mark 11. I've downloaded older versions of 3D Mark 11 and the latest version of 3D Mark 11 from the official site, and it just doesn't want to play nice for whatever reason. There's something going on that it doesn't want to run. But I was able to run 3D Mark 03, 3D Mark 06, and I even ran the Sanctuary benchmark, which kind of foolish too because I didn't run those on the other machines. But still, it gave me a good reference point for when I benchmark them later, especially in some future videos. So the benchmark results, starting with 3D Mark 03. The beefy PC I did a couple months ago now, which was the single core 3 gigahertz Pentium 4 and that X300 GPU, had a very modest 2047 3D Marks, which is not bad, except for the fact that it gets completely blown out of the water with the with this XP tower, which 3D Mark 03 score was 34,430. So nearly a 15 times performance increase from this to the beefy PC. However, 3D Mark 03 on the Windows 7 PC here, 78,360. Basically almost double, more than double the performance of this guy here, which is not surprising because realistically, there's at least a couple year difference here between parts and hardware, especially on the GPU side. And also the caveat there, this one, when I ran that benchmark, was not running an SLI. I'm having a weird graphical issue with this one running anything in an SLI. But what's weird is I don't think it's the graphics cards. I think I'm having an issue with either the ribbon cable or the board itself, which is going to absolutely suck if that's the case. But yeah, so for caveat there, the Windows 7 one is twice the performance of this one, but this one also had a single GPU. Now, 3D Mark 06 was a little bit more modest with 19,045 3D Marks. I'll have to put up on screen here what the 3D Mark 06 results were of the XP machine, because I kind of forgot to look that one up. But anyway, the Sanctuary benchmark was 108.5 FPS. So this thing has a lot of performance under the hood. But does that translate to some of the games of this era? Well, let's try it out, and we'll hopefully some of these games will launch. I actually don't know if they will because, well, there is an issue with Windows Vista and 7 running games today, and well, we'll just have to see. Let's start with a Windows 7 classic, BioShock 2. Is it actually going to work? It's weird the icon's like wrong. Okay. Yeah, 2010. So yeah, this is perfect for what this hardware should be. Oh, how far you have fallen, NVIDIA. It's actually been a long time since I played BioShock 2, so I don't know how much I'm going to play here, but that looks really good. Whoa. Like, wow. I got everything set to high detail. Been a long time since I played BioShock 2. I'm not 100% certain where I'm supposed to go. Okay, so BioShock 2 here is running at 60 FPS, which is basically, I think it's actually locked to that. Am I use Xbox 360? Yeah, I can't do that because I don't have a way to do that. Wait, click on that one. Let's turn VSync off. 1600 by 900, high graphics quality, high. Yeah. Force global lighting. I just want to see what happens. Oh, there we go. So yeah, we're actually getting closer to We're getting like a lot of FPS here. This is awesome. Everything looks good too. Riveter named Rosie. That's a neat little reference. Okay, yeah, I need to stop playing this before I just get sucked into it because this is awesome. So we're gonna save. So Bioshock 2 runs good. Let's try Crisis. Well, I'm still not a fan of these high reflective monitors. By the way, yeah, I've been sitting here for like 3 minutes and it's not done anything. It just exited. Okay, so Crisis doesn't run, but that could just be something's not installed right. Like I said, I had some issues getting these to install. Doom 3. Okay, so what do we got? We got campaign, multiplayer settings, credits, settings. Um, oh, there's no way to. Oh, there's no way to change that. Oh, system. Oh, this is disable for VSync. Yeah, look at that. Big number. 1280 by 720, frame rate 60 FPS. Yeah, we'll just try this. All right, we'll just start a new game, and I don't know why you can't change graphics settings, but we'll just see what it looks like. This doesn't look all that great, and I am seeing in the middle of the screen, yeah, some sort of artifacting. And I'm noticing there's a sound thing. EAX ain't working. But the sound chip does support EAX. I know it does. I guess people they don't look that bad. I don't know. I can't really tell if it. Can anyone who's ever played Doom 3 BFG on super high settings tell me this is good? Yes. Sound's not working right. Thank you, sir. I about panicked. Yeah, I don't know if anybody can see that, but yeah, right in the middle of the screen, you can see some artifacting. I don't know if that's from the SLI or something weird going on. Okay, so I'm not going to play too much of Doom 3 BFG here because, yeah, I could almost. I have a lot of fun with Doom 3 on console, so I know I could get sucked into this game. It's not looking. It looks. I think it looks okay. It's definitely like a medium, maybe high setting, but there's just some weirdness going on with the artifacting, and EAX ain't working, which is very strange because I know the sound chip supports it. Um, so maybe there's something that's not installed or set up correctly. I'll have to get that figured out. Okay, so now let's try Skyrim, one of the most quintessential Windows 7 era games. 1280 by 720, anti-aliasing, best quality, everything we're going to set to ultra. Let's see what it can do. I don't know how this is going to go because this is not the original edition of Skyrim. This is the special edition that came out uh, around, I think it was like 2013 or so. This PC does meet the minimum requirements. It's just, I'm not sure if graphically it'll be okay. Start a new game. Well, that doesn't look too bad. I'm getting some stutters though. And in case you're wondering why I'm not using MSI Afterburner, for some reason it doesn't want to start. Ooh, I'm dropping oohs. Ooh. I'm at a black screen and I'm only getting 15 FPS. Ultra might have been a mistake. Oh, that's not. Oh God. Oh, the lag. Oh my God. This is barely playable. This isn't even like cinematic 24. This is god awful. Oh God. It's so bad. Okay, so it's barely playing Skyrim Special Edition here on Ultra. I'm getting like 12 FPS on this. Yeah, this this is awful. Oh, I need to quit. I'm gonna hurt my. Okay, so Skyrim it's double digits, but it's basically almost unplayable. but it's on ultra. I'm pretty sure if I set everything down to like maybe high or medium, it might be more playable, but that is just awful. And like I said, that's the special edition one. That's the one that came out, I think, 2016. I have just not been able to find the original version of Skyrim anywhere. No, it's not for sale anywhere, and I have a physical copy of it, but it's locked with Steam, unfortunately. So, and I'll talk about that later. So, Skyrim is barely playable. Bioshock 2 is more than playable. In fact, that means Bioshock 1 will be playable. Let's try one of my favorite games, Fallout New Vegas. Okay, we're done with the oh, there we go. Keep forgetting that has all that stuff. Okay. So yeah, this looks really good. Oh. Did I just see a graphical glitch? I don't. Am I having graphical stuff? Yep. Oh no. Oh no. Even he's doing it. Oh no. The game is broken. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Okay, so it works. There's just some. Oh god, they're all just sliding around. This is bad. Uh, so it is playable and it does look good because I am getting a steady 60 FPS, which I think is what Bethesda games like this lock to anyway. But it's gonna be awful to play with everybody like sliding around on butter. This is oh, this is not good. I don't think I've ever had this problem though, because this is the GOG version and this plays great on my computer upstairs and even works great on my laptop. So I wonder. Oh, I wonder if there's something weird with this being. Well, no, because my main computer's a Ryzen 5. My laptop's a quad core i7. So I wonder if there's something just weird going on with the installation file here. Anyway, it works. I'm happy. Oh god. Okay, it doesn't work flawlessly. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it here on that. It works very well. It runs benchmarks perfectly. In fact, it blows the beefy PC and this XP machine here, and by extension, my Q66 one, out of the water in terms of performance, which is not all that surprising given the amount of increase in computing power that happened from the Core 2 line to the Core I line. Now, granted, to be fair, the Core i7 of that generation, the first generation anyway, was effectively just a souped up Core 2 quad, but regardless of that, performance wise, it works very well. And obviously, there's some weird things going on with the games I installed. Their icons not showing up correctly. 3D Mark 11 not wanting to install at all. And a couple little things within games like EAX not working, which is weird because this board does support EAX and the drivers are installed because it has sound, but for some reason, it's just not working. Now, as for gaming, this thing, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It runs decently well. Obviously, of all the games I tried on here, Bioshock 2 and by extension Bioshock 1 run flawlessly. Doom 3 BFG had an issue. Doom 3 BFG did have that weird in the middle of the screen line thing, which could be a result of SLI, and also EAX wasn't working. And for some reason, I couldn't change any graphical qualities settings. I don't know why. Every game I've ever played from this era, you can do that in the main menu. I don't know what's going on there. But it did run it very well, and it did look good, and at least sound was working so that it was able to have some sort of ambiance, I guess. But Skyrim Special Edition was a borderline slideshow at Ultra, which is not too surprising considering the Special Edition re-release came out, I believe, 2016, which is a good 6 years after this machine's hardware was out, and thus there was a lot of, again, computational increases. And this is actually just slightly below the recommended requirements for Special Edition anyway. So this thing was struggling to run anywhere close to a playable frame rate. And to me, I honestly feel that 30 FPS at the resolution it was at would have been playable. 24 would have been cinematic, and it would have been decent, but it still would have been a kind of a struggle to play. This wasn't even hitting cinematic. So as for Fallout New Vegas, it runs. It runs at a solid 60 FPS. It looks great. In fact, I'll even put it on par that it looks almost as good on this as it does on my Windows 11 laptop. But it has a massive graphical problem with the characters not moving. They're just still statues sliding across the ground, and that's not good. And as for Crysis not wanting to load at all, that is actually very surprising to me, because Crysis runs on this one. It did start on the beefy PC, and it ran on my Q6600 machine. So the fact that it's not wanting to start up here is probably an installation problem. Because like I said, I had a lot of issues getting games to install on this machine. Not just in terms of, difficult to install, but actually getting the games was kind of an issue onto this machine. And that's the thing I want to talk about with a project like this, Windows Vista and Windows 7. I'm lumping them both together because they both have the same issues. Seeing the giant looming shadow that's been overcrossed this entire video is I kept mentioning quirks and oddities with Windows 7 and Vista when it came to gaming. And this is a prime example of that. And to kind of know what I'm talking about, I need to bring up this, BioShock, which is installed on here, but not this version. The version installed on my computer here is the GOG version. This physical copy can never be installed again. And this is one of the issues with building a Windows Vista / Windows 7 era correct gaming PC. And that is this little banner right here. Games for Windows. Now, if you're a youngin' and you don't quite know what this is or what this means, then I'll explain it. But for all of you old guard that know exactly what this is what all PC gamers was warned about back in the day. And I'll admit, a lot of us just didn't listen. We didn't see the writing on the wall, and we're now suffering for it. So to explain the problem with this, before Windows Vista and 7, most, if not every game that was physical, when you installed it onto your computer, there was usually a code somewhere inside the casing, inside the box, or on the disk that you had to type in, and it would activate that copy. And then you can install it on almost as many computers as you wanted. There was some DRM back then, to prevent it, but usually that's what the code was for. That was the DRM, or the digital rights management, which is what prevented piracy. And for the longest time, it just worked. And yes, I'll admit that this kind of stuff did start towards the tail end of Windows XP. It was really Windows Vista and 7 that got the bad rap for it. And that was because of online-only activation. BioShock here is a perfect example of this issue. What happens is that on the game disk itself, the game's like 99% there. It installs most of it. To finish installing, it needs to connect to an online server somewhere in the ether to get the final 1%, to prove that you have a valid copy. And usually that's tied to some sort of account. Usually that online account is involved with the game in some way, shape, or form. The most common of one is Steam, which is still around today, and we all use it and know it. Now, back then, this was not that big a deal. You got a Steam account, you bought the game, it got tied to your Steam account, and it was fine. You could install it on as many computers as you wanted, as long as you could log into your Steam account and stay logged into your Steam account. Once you logged off, it kind of broke that activation connection, and it would only work again once you logged back in. Back then, that was the new hotness, a new fangled thing, and Windows Vista and 7 era was really pushing this because it was going to prevent computer piracy totally. But in 2026, this has become a major issue, especially for wanting to play some of these classic games that are now considered retro, like BioShock, BioShock 2, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, Crysis, Doom 3 BFG Edition. The problem is that if you bought these via Steam, you can't play them anymore on hardware like this, mainly because Steam no longer supports Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 10 realistically anymore. And because of that, even if you did have your original gaming computer still to all this time and the drives are still good, it will never connect to the internet again and never be able to connect this via Steam, and you'll never be able to play those games again. The digital online-only activation is one of the biggest blots in the history of PC gaming in terms of, well, basically ruining the fun for being able to play these games. And yes, I've mentioned, these are the GOG versions, which GOG, you can still buy these games and download them digitally, and you can install them to whatever computer you want because there is no DRM on them. It's fully legal, and it's, in my opinion, way better than Steam does in a lot of cases because, like I said, I could download and buy these off my Windows 11 computer and put them on my Windows 7 tower here, which is what I basically did. Which, obviously, yes, there's some caveats, and I had some issues in getting them installed, but that's user error, not the game problem. So, yeah, that's the big problem of building a Windows Vista or Windows 7 gaming tower is the online-only activation for some of your favorite games. Ideally, you could probably find them on GOG, which they have a crap ton of games, including some games that I remember playing back in the day and loved playing, like the BioShock series. And I was able to buy them, download them, and get them onto this machine so I could play it in an error-correct manner. It just makes things so much better to play it that way. Anyway, with all that being said, this actually turned out to be a really fun project because I have been just itching to get onto a Windows 7 build for the longest time. I have a lot of fond memories of Windows 7, and even though I never got a chance to play a lot of games on my Windows 7 netbook, it stuck with me that there was a lot of fun games during that time that I missed out on in terms of PC gaming. And even though, yeah, I have them on console, I wanted to see what I missed out on in terms of PC gaming back in the day, and I'm glad that I was able to get this thing running. All the quirks and caveats included. And even though, yes, this is vastly different from the Windows XP tower, in which there was no way I could have afforded these parts, or realistically afforded the Q66 parts, because back in the day I didn't have the money, or a job at the time. Windows 7, I actually did have a job, and I did have some money I was saving up to build a PC. Not with these parts, God no. This was all enthusiast parts, and this PC here was probably closer to about $2 to $3 grand to build back in the day, depending on the graphics card I used. Now, I actually do have a list of parts that I wanted to build back in the day, and I had them wrote down on a notebook. In fact, I have most of those parts in the computer room ready to build a Windows 7 PC that I wanted to build back in the day. This is just a overkill for the primary era of Windows 7. And obviously, yes, I could have went with a 3rd or 4th gen Core i5 or i7 and a GTX 960, or, realistically whatever, in order to make a much more powerful and much more capable Windows 7 PC. But this to me is like basically overkill for that nice sweet spot for Windows 7. 2009 to about 2012, when its primary use was right there, before Windows 8 and after Windows XP, when PC gaming was really starting to this massive shift in terms of both the online-only activation and also the prettiness that is Windows 7 Aero theme. This is a very pretty operating system, and my light just died. Anyway, this is a very pretty operating system with the Aero theme going in. Obviously, there's a lot of really neat themes that I remember back in the day I wanted to get on my netbook, but they just wouldn't run Aero theme because it was just a piece of crap. Anyway, enough rambling. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed this Windows 7 project build. If you have any thoughts or comments on the parts I used or any of the games I tried playing here, or if you have any ideas of what could be going on with some of these games, put it in the comments. I'd love to get this fixed so that I can get these games fully working, fully rocking, and fully test them out. If you have a good idea for a replacement video card that I could use for this instead of the 550 Ti's, obviously it was just me being silly using these in an SLI setup. So if you had a build just like this back in the day, what graphics card did you use? Because I'm really curious to know what would have been a truly overkill GPU that's era correct for this build to, oh, maybe if I can find it cheap on eBay, I might pick it up, slap it in here, and see the performance difference. It might actually shock me. And you are going to be seeing this thing in the future when I do a lot more Windows 7 gaming. I do want to get 3D Mark 11 installed on here and benchmark it correctly. That way I have a reference for some other projects coming up in the future. So be on the lookout for that. Also got some other projects coming up in the future, including a couple of vlogs. So be on the lookout for those unscripted kind of things. And that being said, again, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.